Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the podcast. I am pleased to be joined with Miss Priscilla today. Priscilla is the co-founder of Issa Compass, a startup which is driven to build software to make visa applications easier so that anyone can live anywhere around the world. Priscilla has lived in 5 countries before moving to Thailand, where she has understood some of the difficulties and obstacles with visa applications. Having worked for many well-known established companies such as BCG and Foodpanda, Priscilla brings a wealth of experience in working to a solution that the world needs with a fun and energetic team. I am pleased to be joined with Priscilla on today's episode of the podcast. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Wow, that's a very kind introduction. Thank you.
How are you today, Priscilla?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm sure my audience is eager and excited to know more about you and more about Issa Compass. So I mentioned in the introduction that you lived in 5 countries before moving here. So my first question to you is, how has living in these 5 countries shaped who you are and the way you understand the complexity of visa applications?
Yeah, I think it's definitely been a very formative experience for me. So maybe just to paint a picture for those of you who I haven't met yet. So I grew up in Hong Kong. First 18 years of my life lived in the same apartments, went to the same school for like 12 years. So had a, you know, had an existence that was pretty much in one place. Then I went to the US for college. I went to Princeton. And then after college, after graduation, I moved to New York to work at BCG. And then after 1 year, though, I was rejected for a US work visa. This was the first year of the Trump presidency, but in all fairness, the policy was a Clinton era policy. So, both parties had a part to play in this visa policy. So essentially, in the U.S., the work visa system, everyone that meets the qualification gets put into a lottery, and it's actually a pure lottery system. I think my year, if you had an undergrad degree, you had like a 33% chance of being selected. I think it's gone down since. Maybe it went. I don't know what the current rates are, but it's a lottery that where the odds are not in your favor. So then my company moved me to Canada, which was actually also a really good experience because, Toronto is a, you know, very diverse metropolis, loved being kind of north of the border and also experiencing that. Then my company had an opportunity for me back in Hong Kong again, and they sent me on a project to Shenzhen in mainland China. And then after another year or so there, I moved to Singapore to work at Foodpanda. So some of those moves were voluntary, and some of those moves kind of were forced by immigration policies. But looking back, I'm actually so grateful that all of those things happened. I think each chapter was such a distinct chapter for me, especially early on in my career. The fact that these were the first, 5, 6 years of my career, being able to experience all of those different places, working cultures, um, social cultures. I think that living and working in a place as a young adult is so different from studying abroad in a place or even, so I think it was a very, very unique experience. And so I'm very grateful for that, definitely. Of course, it was also hard at times. I think it made, many things like building longer friendships harder, made dating harder, when you know that you're going to a place and you're probably going to move again in a year's time. But it did mean that I met all sorts of people from across the world. And each place had its own, even though I was working at the same, like, even though I was still at BCG in 3 different places, each country was so distinct in their working cultures, especially when you get sent to the client site. I remember when I was in mainland China, they would laugh at me for my Mandarin accent because I'm from Hong Kong and we have a very distinct accent. So that definitely, for example, was like a new it was a new experience for me, motivated me to improve my Mandarin and get up to speed. What else? I think in each place, I noticed that there are places where I think they value a certain distance between your work colleagues and your personal life. And I was really surprised. I felt like in Singapore, for example, that was where my coworkers felt the most like friends, which was not something I expected at all. Like when I moved there, I think I expected like a I didn't expect to be welcomed so warmly by many of my very new friends, new coworkers. I remember when I moved there and my very first Chinese New Year in Singapore, I already had like three different Singaporean families invite me to their family reunion dinner. The Chinese New Year reunion dinner is like only for family members. So it's like a big honor to be invited to someone else's family reunion dinner when you're not even like a girlfriend or like a plus one or like even extended family. So I just remember being so overwhelmed by the level of hospitality that I received in Singapore, for example, that I just wasn't expecting. Yeah, so I think at each, and of course, I mean, I still have, very dear friends from each of those chapters, and I'm looking forward to seeing how long my Bangkok chapter will be. I hope it's for much longer than the 1 year or 2 years I spent in each of those places. And yeah, and that, I'm gonna be here for quite a while building Issa Compass and expanding it regionally and all that.
It's quite interesting that you mentioned like the different places that you were in, the expectations and actually the reality of how it was when you were actually there. But as someone who is a young adult, when you're moving from place to place, I feel like some people might not be open to that idea and they kind of have a little bit of self-doubt and are more on the closed side, especially with opening up. And like you said, everything's a lot harder making new friends, sustaining relationships. So, for someone who's going through a similar stage or is in a position where they have to keep transitioning different countries as a young adult, how do you feel like you tackled that? And what advice do you have to those who are going to go through like a similar situation?
Yeah, I think moving as a working adult is very hard. That 100%. I think when you go abroad for school, you have an inbuilt community, right? Even like you have your program, you have people in your cohort, you have a lot of campus activities. When you move as a working adult, I think it can feel very, very lonely at times. And I felt lonely many, many days in like, in New York, Toronto, like Shenzhen, Singapore, all those places. So I do think it's tough. Also, especially I think certain countries, so first part is that if there's a big population, I feel where like they grew up there, they have their set friends groups, it can feel very difficult to break in. And then there ends up being like the little expat bubble that is easy to stick to. So I guess number one, I mean, I think it's kind of maybe it's cheesy, but I do think you have to put yourself out there and I think there comes with you might be hanging out with some people and it takes a bit of time to figure out who your people are. It always helps that's why I think I mentioned I love going to run clubs here. It's like a nice way for me where it's like both an activity, you're exercising at the same time, but you're also socializing. So that type of thing where and then you keep going to the same activity week after week, then it helps you, figure out who you click with and meet people in a more low key, casual way. You're not just like, oh, should we get coffee? And then it's like a first date, whether it's platonic or romantic, there's more pressure to it versus, okay, it's a shared activity. You're there every week. If you want to chat, you can chat. If not, you can go and meet other people. So I think for me, things like run clubs are somewhat of or other types of like semi-regular, like weekly activity with like a set schedule, set meeting point has been so, so helpful for meeting people and meeting friends. Like here in Bangkok, for example, I have that. And then I also have this women's brunch that where same thing, we get brunch every Sunday. It's a women's only brunch, but it means that every single Sunday, I know that I have one thing that I'm going to at 11 a.m. and I know that I'll meet cool people there. Some people you'll get along better with, some people, you don't necessarily click with, and that's okay. And then the people you do see, like you do like, and then you keep hanging out with, then you can have like separate hangouts. So I think going to some sort of like shared weekly activity has been very, very helpful. Um,
Speaking with Issa Compass, and we mentioned a little bit about your journey, your travel, your experience. When someone has an idea, like you had an idea like Issa Compass, people put that idea into place and they have actionable plans. But for you to kind of have this big platform, Issa Compass, that you have today, what inspired you to start in the first place and ultimately be consistent? And where does this drive that you have come from? Is it because it's something that you want to make an impact on the world, or is it because you want to feel the impact of other people?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of themes in that question, lots to unpack. Maybe first off, though, I think that in general, well, okay, when we're kids, they ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you're just supposed to have this one answer. Or I think many people think of, I think myself included, I thought that, oh, startup founders just came up with the idea. And that's just it. They had an idea and then they executed. Definitely for me and for most founders I know, the reality though is that you kind of had an idea, but then you did something and then you realize, oh, wait, this doesn't actually work. Customers don't actually want this. Okay, what if we try this? Oh, the customer liked this part, but they hated this part. Okay, so maybe sometimes it turns out, okay, it's the part that they hate. Oh, that's where they have a really big pain point. Let me try this instead. Like it's this constant iterative process actually that ends up getting you to where what becomes the product that then gets traction and finds product market fit. I think maybe it exists, but I think it's very, very rare where it's like from day one you had the idea and that was just it. Like even for Issa Compass actually, um, when we first started, it was more focused on a different segment where we talked to many, many different people from different demographics. We figured out what makes it difficult for them to move, what are their real problems here in Thailand, or what were their frustrations before they even got to Thailand. And that's how we eventually landed on our current product. And now that's the one that's getting scale and traction. So it was a long journey of talking to customers, iterating, pivoting, making slight tweaks, seeing how the customer responds, making another tweak. And then even when we landed on our current product, for example, our original app, it was so confusing. People didn't understand it. I would put it in front of people and people like you could see it in their faces, right? But then you know, tweak a little bit. Okay, then you see, okay, this part they respond to, this part their eyes light up. Then you add a little like incrementally. So anyway, so all that was a long way to say that I think even though from the beginning, our vision and our mission is that we want to make it easier for people to live and work anywhere in the world, as rightfully put it. But the way that we ended up doing that has become very different. And we also, for example, my co-founder likes to say that he also realized that, for example, we were able to place in like service jobs in the food and beverage sector, they save up like 3 months of their salary to buy a MacBook because they want to learn programming. And they asked us about like AI and Claude and how to use that to program. Like, and then their next step is that, okay, then they want to actually maybe like, then they want to have the opportunity to move to Japan and all of that. And that's like the type of like journey that we also want to be able to enable. So then in terms of what keeps me like motivated and the drive and execution, I think number one, I'm a very competitive person. So if I decide that I want to do something, I want to do it well. Um, and that's part of it. And then there's also another part of it, which is that I feel like so many people are relying on me now, my team, but also, clients who trusted me with their visas. And like we were saying earlier, visas are such a high stakes product, right? It determines where you can live, whether you're legally living and working in that country. So whenever someone puts that trust in me, in my company, in my product, I feel like they're putting their life in our hands. So I want to make sure that we're able to we can enable the life that they want to live out for themselves.
But what sparked this idea for having this like once a month Bangkok Sunset Social, and why is it hosted every month?
Yeah, yeah. So, well, and getting a visa is just the first part of moving somewhere and building a life there, right? It's the very first step, and it's actually the step that if we do our job well here at Issa Compass, I want you to not even think about it, Like today, how if you want to buy something, you barely think about, okay, what store do I go to? How will I get to that store? You just think, oh, I'll just go on Shopee and I'll just look for the thing. And then without even thinking about it, 2 days later, it's delivered to my doorstep. Or same with Grab, right? You're no longer even thinking, oh, do I have to walk 15 minutes to restaurants and how long will I have to wait? You just tap, 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 and you know it's going to come. That's kind of how I want people to feel about visas. Like, don't focus on that part. Focus on when the food gets there, you're going to enjoy it. Okay, when your product gets to your doorstep, you're going to, enjoy using that product. So when you have your visa and you're able to move to Thailand or the next country, you go there, and what are the important things, as we were talking about earlier? It's about finding your people, building a community. Okay, figuring out, maybe it's a season of exploration for you. Maybe it's a season of like hustling and working hard. Maybe it's a season where you want to meet like a boyfriend or girlfriend. And that, I think, to me is so much more important when you move to a new country. And so that's partly what we want to catalyze with the Bangkok Sunset socials. People being able to meet new people, find new ideas. Actually, at the last one, I met two or three people where we later on realized that we all worked at Foodpanda, and we were kind of like, oh, your name rings a bell. Like, oh, we worked together on, like, you probably asked me about this like back then, didn't you? So that was like another one of those like, very nice moments where you realize, okay, actually, you're much more connected than you think you are. People around you have so much more in common than you think they do.
because you were on the same path as them, the same journey, but you didn't exactly know that you were around each other and like knew each other until you actually met for this. So it's almost like destiny
Exactly.
putting you in the same path again. And we speak about Issa Compass and also the complexity of the application, which was something that we touched upon, but it's a really easy app to use. It's the world's easiest visa application. So, how did Issa Compass iterate or exactly get manufactured to become the world's easiest visa application, and what makes it so easy to use?
So at the very beginning, we had sort of an idea. We had some of the key ideas of what features were needed. I think from the very beginning, we knew that people needed to be able to check whether or not they're eligible for a visa. Then people need to be able to upload their documents, and we need to be able to communicate with them. They want to be able to track the status in terms of the visa application process. That was kind of it. That's like more or less generally what we wanted to be able to, the key features of the app. Then we started putting it in place. Number one, the first version was very ugly. It was like basically black text on white background, right? But at least the first version was, we figured out how to present very complex information in a way that any user understand. Small things like, do you present, how do you break down the information? How do you ask a question? How do you phrase a question so that the user can answer it in a way that does determine whether or not they're eligible without confusing them? I'll give you an example where initially we would ask people kind of what their situation was in Thailand or what their employment situation was. And people are just so confused. Am I self-employed? Am I freelance? Am I a digital nomad? But I'm not even working. I haven't been working for a long time. We gave them 9 options and we realized it was just too many. They would pause at the screen and their finger would hover over it for the longest time and they didn't know which one to tap. So then that was what my first sign of, okay, we need to simplify. Just give them 3 options, see if that works. You're working for a company in Thailand, you're working, but for a company outside of Thailand, and you're not working. Just 3, and just leave it at that. See how it goes. Okay, that seemed it, but then so then that's like one small example of how we like kept tweaking it based on the customer's response, both verbal and nonverbal. Like sometimes you can tell based on their eyes glazing over or their finger hovering over the screen, and sometimes you can tell because they'll tell you specifically, like they'll ask you questions. Oh, what do you mean by this word? Or they'll tell you, this is so confusing. What do you want from me? Then we also added in more like design elements. Okay, you know, making certain things darker color, more obvious, graying this part out. Like And a lot of, I mean, it's both art and science, I think. And we were also very lucky. I met a very good UI UX designer. Shout out to Lexi, who was amazing, worked with us kind of here and there as like kind of a consultant and really helped us go from just ugly text boxes on the screen to something that actually felt like a professionally designed app. And then going forward, it's been kind of, yeah, as we've expanded our product offerings, as we've added more features, then it becomes also more about like automating more of the process so that it's more self-serve. It's easier for people to be able to get the information that they need quickly without waiting for humans to respond, and without needing to always talk to somebody face to face or on a phone call.
That's amazing, and I hope that those people who aren't aware of Issa Compass, firstly, how are you not aware? It's probably one of the biggest um, companies that or visa applications out there. So if you haven't already done so, I'll put the link in the description so you can check it out. And for someone like you who has a lot of experience and a lot of a very extensive journey, in many different places. As a young adult who's been through so many things and has been in so many places, what advice would you give to those who want to start something like you?
First of all, you don't know like how it might start. It could be a random person that you met somewhere. It could be the, just a moment where you realized, hey, this is a problem that people have. But really, inspiration and connections can come from anywhere. And secondly, the initial idea or, vision or products that you thought of, 99% of the time, it's not going to be what you end up building, and that's okay. But also then once you do find something that I think, you see that there's a customer need for it, you see that people are willing to pay for it, you see that you are uniquely equipped to solve this problem, then a lot of it is just, like execution, discipline. It's just about putting in the hours every day. Because you put if you put in sheer volume of hours to solving this one specific thing that nobody else is tackling with the same level of like drive and energy, then you'll probably become the world expert at it because you are the only one, focusing on it, making sure that it's the best product that it can be, solving a specific problem. Um, and then, yeah, and I think it's it's a fun process with many ups and downs. But I'm, very grateful that I get to do this.
So we talked about like what the world needs, and you're building this. It's a compass I mentioned many times, which is an amazing platform for not only a certain group of people, but it's transformational to everyone. But if we speak about automated legal immigration, why do you think this is a solution that the world needs?
So we call it automated legal immigration because I, I've observed that in many parts of the world, there, I don't think it's a new tendency, right? But there is often some controversy around immigration, right? And I think there are many valid arguments about whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. I think many economists would say it's a good thing. It brings a lot of economic growth. If you look at all the, you know, big companies that we all know and love, like Google, like all of these were started by immigrants or children of immigrants. It brings a lot of cross-pollination and in terms of ideas and talents. You want people to be able to contribute the most that they can in whatever environment is best suited to their talents and their propensities, their dreams, right? So first off, that here at Issa Compass, that's why we always put legal immigration everywhere in our messaging, because we will only, support visas and we will for people who are qualified, who meet all the requirements, who follow all of the rules and regulations of the visa type of that country, of the whole process. We only deal with, documents that are authentic and all of these things. And I truly believe that if we are, doing immigration in the correct way, and of course, correct is up to policymakers to define, it's up to every citizen to define. I think there are places where you can debate the policy, whereas at Issa Compass, we're not about debating policy. We're not about changing policy. We take the government policy as it is. We're not lobbying for anything. We're not trying to, affect people's votes or bills or anything. We're just taking government policy that is often very arcane. It's very difficult for people to understand. It's very opaque. It's not presented in a way that's easy for people to navigate. And we're just trying to make that more transparent, more accessible, more user-friendly. We're trying to take the existing policy and actually communicate with you to tell you that, hey, did you know that you're actually eligible for a visa for this country? Oh, you wanted to move to Canada? Did you know that based on your education and your qualifications, you actually have this visa path, and this path will lead to, these things. And because those policies are the ones that are defined by their citizens, their policymakers, whatever. And we follow all of those like legal regulations. So that's what we're trying to, facilitate and make it easy for people to achieve. And it's the same here in Thailand. Like for all of our visa types, we're just trying to show you, okay, based on this salary level, this type of company, this type of work, like this type of life situation, this is what you need to do. And also, not even just for getting the visa, but going forward, as you continue to live in Thailand, this is what you need to do in order to stay compliant, to make sure that, you're following the rules and requirements of your visa. So we think that that is a much, that is the solution that probably every country in the world needs. The problem that we're focusing on is helping people who are actually qualified, who meet the requirements, be able to get the visa that they need to live and work in the country that they want to live and work in. I was actually a political science major in college, so that's also probably why I have thoughts about this.
No, it's great, and it's good to see how you applied what you learned in college to what you do today. And it's obvious that you have a certain level of passion for what you do, which is great, and that's something that we all need in terms of when we want to start something, when we want to be consistent, and to have the level of growth that you had. And we've had a really great discussion, but we are close to approaching this end of this interview section of the podcast. And I would like to ask you one final question, which is if you could voice one unique message to the world, what would it be?
Sure. So it's that we really don't know how life will turn out. And I think it's the motivating force behind how I'm living my life right now. And also, it's a compass, right? Just because you grew up in a certain place, or just because the people surrounding you when you were growing up did a certain thing, that doesn't mean that you have to do that as well. I want people to be able to choose how they live their life, where they live their life, which is partly why we want to make it easier for anyone to get the visa that they need to move to a new country, live and work there, build a life there, find a community there. Because honestly, even, 2 years ago, I would never have imagined that I would be sitting here in Bangkok, building this type of company, working with the amazing people that are around me every day, serving the clients that I am serving now. So and it all began with, yeah, like as we were talking about, one introduction that a friend made. So I really think that life takes you by surprise. It's often small moments that maybe during the moment you overlooked it, and then looking back, you realize what a pivotal moment it was for you. And so I've stopped, thinking, okay, what will my life planning out what my life will look like in like 10 years, 15 years. I think I used to do that. Now I realize, no, life is an iterative process. I think you should still have some sort of like vision and dream for your life, but also with the humility and recognition that, life surprises you and it's not going to turn out the way that you expected, but in a good way.
Thank you for sharing that message. It was an amazing message how you were able to connect the journey and, talk about life, and it's unique, it's special. And we have concluded this interview section of the podcast. So thank you so much, Priscilla, for your time and your thoughts, your insights, sharing about your company. It was a great discussion.
It's been so fun talking to you. And yeah, I was saying to you, I feel like it's been almost therapeutic to reflect back on, my journey and how it's gotten me here and then, what I see to come. So thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. And to my audience who is new to the channel, if you haven't already done so, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video if you did find it interesting and if it's something that you want others to see. And with that, I will see all of you for the next episode. Goodbye.